Let's just go and keep it here. Hello, guys. Welcome to this new edition of Mind Podcast. This is Aadit Kapadia, and together with me, I have a very fascinating topic ahead and a very fascinating panelist to take that topic with me. As I promised to all our viewers, listeners last week, we are going to do an entire podcast on cricket, and we're going to talk about the World Test Championship, and we're going to talk about what it means, what India's loss sort of means, and what it means for world cricket going forward. Are we going to see a change, in the captaincy position, and basically, how can India resolve the apparent problems we saw there? So together with me is lawyer, columnist, and most importantly for this podcast, cricket lover and cricket romantic, test cricket romantic Nikhil Mehra. Hi,
Hi,
Nikhil.
Aadit. Thanks for having me. Again, you made the same mistake of the last podcast. I'm not a columnist.
Yes, ये बुरी आदत है मेरी. Yes, but
People regard that as very flattering, being
हाँ,
called a columnist, and I'm sure it is quite a thing to be. But I am.
हाँ, so I'm consistently messed up, basically, is what you're trying to tell me. but really, what I mean, the cricket romantic and a test cricket romantic is the right sort of
Listen,
description.
I love football. I love tennis. I love a lot of other sports. But Test cricket there's nothing like Test cricket.
Yeah, I mean, 12 months a year we can do it, basically. So let's go straight into it. I mean, for people who are living under a rock or about three rocks, they and did not know that India was playing this amazing game with New Zealand. The reason I say amazing game is because we have probably had 3.5 days of play and yet still managed to get a result. One could argue that was because India, I don't know, had a massive brainwave in the last 1 hour or one of the 1 hour on day 5. But let's get into.
We yielded that result.
Let's get into, before we get into the result, before we go, New Zealand's spectacular victory, because it is spectacular with all that had gone for them, and they were written off for it and stuff. Except we did not write them off. People who were watching Test cricket were saying that Kyle Jamieson and Tim Southee are going to be very hard to play on this wicket along with Trent Boult. Let's get into India first, and then we'll go into the Kiwis and what they did right. What did India do wrong? If I were to ask,
I think we can go step by step. I'll actually pull you back. The Australia series and the England series first, and batting's been failing throughout that.
Yeah.
Right. The Australia series, your top order and your middle order performs sporadically. Nobody actually held the sway. I will say this though, Pujara was monumental in Australia again. If I'm not wrong, statistically, Pujara played almost half of all of the overs that Pat Cummins bowled in that series. And that to me is the sort of thing that changes the series, right? I mean, if Cummins had more deliveries than other batsmen, I think we would not have won that series.
I agree.
So he was good. He was very good. Rahane had one big inning. Kohli left early. Sharma didn't really produce. Gill had showed signs and flashes, played a vital innings on the 5th day in Gabba at the Gabba. Those things sort of what it reflects to is bits and pieces in your batting lineup keep adding up when you need them, but nobody is actually putting the foot down and saying, I'm going to consistently make runs.
Because you use Sanjay Manjrekar's wonderful bits and pieces phrase. Let me put. I'll come to you in a second. But before I was prepping for the podcast, right, and all our subliminal thoughts come when we are in the shower. So I was thinking, as I was in the shower, that is the Indian team right now similar to the Pakistani team of the 90s, where we have a very average batting lineup in Test match cricket, but an above average bowling lineup. So we can only win Test matches where our bowlers outbowl the opposition bowlers, and one batsman has a good innings. Except not like what the shirt I'm wearing, by the way, is from an era where India probably had the best Test batting lineup in the last 40 years. I mean, with Dravid, Sachin, Ganguly, and Tendulkar. So,
I mean, Australia apart, Australia had a terrific batting lineup.
Yeah, and what Sachin and them did was they outbatted Australia. That famous Sydney Test of 240, he just wasn't sure that he had enough bowlers to take 20 wickets, so they just scored 700.
This comparison you draw with Pakistan, I have a very simple question. Do we have a Wasim? Do we have a Waqar? Do we have a Mushtaq Ahmed even or a Saqlain Mushtaq?
So I will argue this though. Ashwin in this form is almost like what
Yeah,
Sachin
right.
was in the 90s.
One Ashwin doesn't do it. We've realized this again. Again, it's you can't put small people. That test bowling lineup of Pakistan's was a monster lineup. And in
Absolutely.
fact, against New Zealand, in New Zealand, they won crazy test matches. 50
Yeah.
to win, 7 wickets in hand, and suddenly these guys just come and blow you away.
Yeah.
And they would do that regularly. So we're not quite that.
No,
I
no,
think our batting,
I'm not giving exact examples,
I
but I'm
understand
saying,
that. I understand. I think our batting generally is good. But what I wanted to make as a point was now England arrive in India. You get one decent pitch, you fail on that pitch.
yeah,
Or more importantly, Root succeeds too heavily on that pitch.
correct.
After that, you give what I call Shiv Sena pitches because you've been digging up the pitch. You've been digging up the pitch at night.
That is the most spectacular description of Shiv
Yeah,
Sena.
I call them Shiv Sena pitches because clearly somebody came in the middle of the night and dug it up. Yeah. There's no other way to describe it. And I get into these fights with all of our very, very, ardent cricket fans on Twitter saying, "What's the problem with these pitches? They're rubbish pitches."
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why they're rubbish pitches. Your batsman did nothing in that series, had to do nothing in that series, and still walked away saying, "We won 3-1. Well done." Okay, you have one innings of note, which is Sharma, 161. Congratulations to him. Well played. But it's just one inning. And he was spectacular there, and he will also be spectacular at home.
Yeah, and Rishabh Pant did exactly what he did in Ahmedabad, what he did in this test match. But clearly, in this test match, he was out for 41. And in Ahmedabad, he got 100 because ball bounce ही नहीं हो रहा था.
It paid off. He also got a little lucky in Ahmedabad at times. It paid off, whatever it is, right? And in circumstances, he understands better. He knows how to manage his percentages better, right? But what I'm driving at is, so now through Australia, through that England series, your batsmen haven't compiled runs.
Exactly.
Right? Now, you've had COVID before that. And you jump into an IPL, and the IPL also is left halfway through. Your batsmen still don't have runs under their belt.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, you chose IPL instead of in England to prepare for this WTC championship. When you got there, you chose to play an intra-squad match.
Yeah.
As opposed to playing a competitive match against a county. Which to me, a competitive match is always a different feel from an intra-squad match. You can pretend that you're fighting with each other and playing as hard as you possibly can, but you're not.
No, and my biggest thing is you're not aware of the strengths of the county. Intra-squad match, mein, you still have,
an English bowling lineup, even if it's a county class bowling lineup, will come and bowl at you with the knowledge of conditions in a way in which your guys simply can't. Right? Yeah. I mean, you're adapting. Anyway, be that as it may, I don't think on preparation I can say a lot because really, what can you do? Nobody can get rid of the IPL. And then there was COVID in between. So you have these protocols of being in quarantine, etc. So there's not a lot you could have done preparation, right? What I find surprising is people are now saying, as the WTC then approaches, and people saw New Zealand pretty much for 2 test matches walloping England. I mean, they didn't win that first test, but they were on top throughout that first test. And in the second test, they put England to the sword. And on a fairly flat wicket, fairly flat day, they bowled them out for a paltry score. In the third innings of that test match. They are a very, very good bowling lineup, a very difficult to comprehend batting lineup. They win big moments constantly in test matches. And that is why they will always keep winning test matches. And honestly, before I proceed further with any other analysis, if this weren't New Zealand, I'd be very upset. But New Zealand, I genuinely feel like they've earned their position.
Harsha said this wonderful thing that when New Zealand was lost to England in the World Cup final, apart from the 5 million New Zealanders, there were 1 billion Indians more outraged than them that they were wrong. Because I think
and I'll tell you something about that day was also the Wimbledon final where Federer lost a match he should have won maybe in 3, if not 4 sets, but lost 3 tie breaks out of 5 and lost that match. And to me, Federer's loss was massive. So somewhere that sense of injustice from Federer also sort of melded into New Zealand. And New Zealand acquired the similar sort of status of must come back and must win something.
Yeah.
But as a moment of cricket, right, when that throw comes in from the boundary line, Stokes dives into the crease and the ball hits his bat and goes for 4. And he gets up apologizing, but he still gets 4 runs. To me, that was one of the great injustices I've seen.
And he should not have gotten 6. He should have gotten 5. So
I don't know whether he got into the crease or not. That's the question, right? Did he slide in, manage to get in or not?
So that's what they were saying, that the Dharmasena also sort of miscalculated. So that could have been, but what the
That
khair,
that
yeah,
only adds fuel to the fire. So there was this injustice, and besides that, New Zealand play a lovely brand of cricket.
yeah.
They have a great mix in their batting, etc. But we'll get to them. As you said, we'll get to them. So now preparation, you can do what you can do. You can't
New,
do more.
New
But what you
Zealand,
can do is you can look at the goddamn weather report and see it says rain for 5 days, and don't come and say dumbass shit like we have picked an 11 that takes the conditions out of the equation. I have never heard a stupider statement by a test selection squad.
yeah.
How do you play test cricket taking the conditions out of the equation? How do you do that?
No, then what is the logic of playing three spinners in India? You should play like three of your best bowlers, so Siraj, Bumrah,
That's it. I mean, play the same team there as well. Why play three spinners?
yeah,
I
वहां
mean,
भी
this
Jadeja को ही
is
खिलाओ.
it's absurdity. It's a silly, almost machismo laden veneer of an excuse for a bad selection, and the
No,
bad
and
selection.
honestly speaking, this reminded me of the Australian attack in the last tour, our attack, where Shami was as good as Pat Cummins. He kept hitting the line consistently. Ishant Sharma was decentish like Josh Hazelwood, who was giving support. Bumrah was like Mitchell Stark, that he would have two great spells and then five shit overs after, followed by that. And Ashwin was the only saving grace, but I just don't think he had enough in the first innings. I mean, the fact that he still managed to pick up the wickets he did or tried to make it a match is just testament to how wily of a bowler Ashwin has become on the
No,
last
no, no,
day.
no, 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 no. See, again, when I am talking about selection, I have no problem with Ravichandran and Ashwin playing.
No, no, I'm coming to that. I'm saying that if you had Siraj instead of Ravindra Jadeja or something like that, at least there was some
I
sort of.
don't think you could have done Siraj for Jadeja. That's what I'm trying to point out. I think the selection problem has occurred prior, and this selection was forced upon you because you had no other options.
Yeah,
You haven't taken any swing bowlers to England,
that
right?
is
Because you
Bhuvaneshwar
haven't
Kumar.
taken Kohli
Yeah,
and you haven't taken Shardul Thakur. Now, I'm not a big fan of Shardul Thakur, but he swings the ball. Deepak Chahar, he swings the ball.
I
You haven't
told
taken
this.
any
I told this on we had this discussion on Kushal's podcast before the WTC, and he's like, "What would be your 11?" And I said that if it is gloomy and dark, I would drop Jadeja for Shardul Thakur. And they're like, "Why?" I was like, "Because he can bat and he swings the ball." I was like, "You would give Shardul Thakur an Anderson like spell, 4 overs with the new ball, 4 overs for reverse swing, and 4 overs at the end. 12 over में 2 wicket guaranteed है because he swings the ball." I mean,
guaranteed है कि नहीं है वो मेरे को नहीं पता, but it represents smart
on a
thinking. I'll
wicket
tell you
like
why.
this,
At some point, Indian cricket in England decided they wanted the bowling all rounder, right? So what was thrust upon us was the abject mediocrity of Hardik Pandya. Hardik Pandya may be excellent in white ball cricket. I don't rate him as a test match bowler
वो
or
रॉबिन
batsman.
सिंह है यार, he is Robin Singh.
Well, he may be a bit better, but I'm not on that. I'm just saying that you chose Hardik Pandya. You were willing to take a bowler who I think is as limited as Pandya on this all-rounder, bowling all-rounder theory, right? So if you have that theory still, I don't understand why you would leave both Bhuvi as well as Shardul at home. And Bhuvi is now going to go play in Sri Lanka, and I don't understand why.
And the strangest, the strangest
And,
thing.
and just on this selectorial theme, right? You pick two spinners. You're just taking the conditions out of the equation, rubbish. Uh, so now what you have is you've taken Jadeja. Ostensibly now Jadeja plays as your all-rounder.
Yeah.
That's the spot that you've given to him.
Yeah.
Right? But he plays in conditions in which he's not going to get overs. So do you deem him a better batsman than Vihari? And in which case, why is Vihari there?
And Vihari is
So
the only guy who played county.
Vihari's slot then should have gone to one of these fast bowling all-rounders that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the selectorial problem, in my view, happens before the team is selected for the test match.
Yeah.
Right? Because within this test match, who do you select now?
So
you couldn't have picked Siraj for Jaddu because Siraj doesn't give you the batting that Jadeja does. And your batting becomes too thin then. Right? If you pick Siraj, you probably have to drop a bowler somewhere else and pick Vihari for his batting.
Yeah.
Right? So you're stuck. You've got a selectorial problem of your own making in your squad selection. And I hope this gets sorted out for England.
The only way Siraj would have come is had they dropped Ashwin for Siraj and Jadeja would be your lone spinner. And then you have four quicks and Jadeja being your spinner. But I just
Right.
think,
In which case, you've not got your best spinner.
yeah,
In my
and Ashwin right now is Kumble between 2004 and 2008. He plays every single test match India plays, irrespective of the condition, because
no, I,
he
I
is,
I want to go a bit further. I think Ravichandran Ashwin is what I love about Ashwin.
yeah,
The guy has tenacity, he has heart. He is the kind of person you want in your team for the emotional element of fighting for 5 days. The guy is not a quitter. I mean, to
yeah,
me, he is see, Kohli produces a lot of bluster. He
yeah,
screams, he yells, he does. Ashwin may be quieter, but my God, he is the most aggressive cricketer in that team.
yeah.
He's a he's a
Which is why I gave the Kumble example, because Kumble was the same way, very quiet of the field. And Steve Waugh said this about Kumble, that whether he bowls his 49th over or the second over, it will be
he's
with the
actually
same velocity. Yeah, and he
no,
just
no,
won't.
but Kumble was still well behaved, right? Ashwin. Let me put it this way to you: Kumble has never got a monk at anybody. Ashwin will not give two shits, right?
Yeah,
And he hasn't. He's proved it.
no,
And
no,
he'll stand in.
but I will tell you this. I learned one thing from Gavaskar. We are now going to say the batsman was Billy Browning and Ashwin ran him out.
Yeah, yeah. In that as
Gavaskar,
my point is, Ashwin must be selected because he is an integral emotional element of the team. So you created a selectorial problem in your squad selection, in my view. The 11 that then you eventually produced, you had very few other options, but I don't think you had any other option without sizably weakening the batting. Now, you could in the past have weakened the batting if your batting lineup was in form. But that's why I pointed to the previous two series. The batting lineup is not in form, was not given the chance to score runs in India also, so did not have any time on the crease at all. So you know you can't rely on five batsmen, and now
Yeah.
you've got to go in with the lineup that you have. You have no options with that.
Absolutely. So, and then we're going to come to the future in a second, but we have to talk about New Zealand because they actually won.
No, I was planning. Honestly, I was planning to go day by day. Like
Yeah,
there
so
are
we'll go day by day, and we'll talk about New Zealand when we go day by day. But
inevitably it will happen, right? Because somebody will be batting, somebody will be bowling. Inevitably, both sides get covered.
absolutely. But one point I'll say before that about Ashwin. India used to always struggle getting out left-handers in the early 2000s, right? You have a plethora of left-handers that have done very, very well against Matthew Hayden, Triscottic, Andy Flower. Ashwin gets out left-handers for fun.
As does
That's
Ishant. As does Ishant. Ishant has a
yeah,
tremendous record.
as just Ishant too. But like, especially like Alistair Cook. I mean, I think between Ashwin and Ishant, they just had a lot of fun with. It was all Ben Stokes in this series, right? Because Ben Stokes will come when the ball
But
is taken.
for both of them, this trait is a more recent phenomenon because Ashwin has bowled extremely ineffectual rubbish test match after test match at Alistair Cook in
Yeah,
India and away from India.
2014 he was horrible, and then 2018 there was
Even
a new
before
Ashwin.
that, in the 2012 series when they came to India,
Yeah, when
when
they won.
yeah. So he just couldn't bowl at Cook. He didn't know how to bowl at Cook.
Yeah, no, I think this is.
And he was a different bowler. He was much younger. His craft wasn't as honed. It was a different time.
And Kumble had the same patch also. Now, when we went to Australia in '99, he was absolutely rubbish. In 2004, he single-handedly took half the Australian side out in every single test match. So, okay,
But after they made 500, speaking.
No, but poor guy had no support. Like our chief.
I agree. I agree.
Our bowler at that time was Ajit Agarkar, and our spinner was Murli Karthik. I mean, it was very bad.
I think Murli Karthik wasn't a bad bowler. I think Ganguly just didn't trust him, and I didn't trust left-arm seamers enough because he used to slaughter left-arm seamers himself.
He's the only guy
he didn't get enough support from Ganguly, but he was a good bowler.
No, he's a great bowler. But tough in Australia. Like left-arm spinners have done just very well.
The Aussies traditionally like left-arm spinners a lot. Yeah. They give a lot of backing to left-arm spinners because Aussie wickets bounce. So left-arm spinners can be very complicated for right-handed batsmen in Australia.
So let's start with the day by day, right? And we'll talk about New Zealand when we do the day by day because
let's start with our Kohli special, the toss.
The toss.
He can never win. He can never win a toss.
Yeah.
Good circumstances, bad circumstances, Kohli is not winning you a toss.
So I think Kohli should stop picking heads or tails. He should just let the opponent do it. I mean,
I mean, we're being facetious. It's just hard luck happens sometimes. Some guys are lucky with the toss. Some guys are not lucky.
And he himself made a joke of that. I think, oh, ekbar jeet gaya. He's like, oh, I'm shocked that I won the toss or something like that. I don't know if it
No,
was the IPL.
he's incredible at it. He beats the odds. So, I mean, it's a coin. It's got sides, man. You should be winning half these things. He smashes the odds to smithereens, dude.
Yeah, exactly. No, so this reminds me of this reminds me of that Sholay. He's the guy who, when you toss the Sholay coin, he would still call it wrong. Even though it
That's actually quite good. That's actually quite good.
So I've had this. I should maybe create my own meme on this because I've had this joke in me for a long time. But coming to that, so from the toss, right? You had actually Kohli. To be fair, he played really well on day one, where he actually cut down on his game.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some opinions on that. But first, let me start with New
The
Zealand.
bowling attack. Huh.
They bowled poorly at the start, and if you saw the broadcasters were very good in their analysis of it, and they showed that there's a length variation of maybe even half a meter or a meter that causes the problem. And New Zealand were towards the back end of the good length spot as opposed to the front end of the good length spot.
Yeah.
And that's why they weren't sort of. And the moment they pitched up, the moment they started pitching up, they got those 2 wickets.
Yep.
Right? The openers started well enough. But New Zealand, while I'd say they bowled poorly, they still look some threat.
Yeah.
Bound to be because of the conditions.
Colin
But
Kohli bat 5 times. I mean, for fun.
Yeah. Now Kohli comes into bat, and we end the day 144 for 3. But Kohli and Rahane are batting for quite some time. Kohli makes 44 with 1 boundary. Right. Now, just as you said, this was a very common opinion I got from a lot of friends at that time. Exactly what you said, that he batted really well. He batted within himself. He made sure he played for the team. For a batsman of Kohli's quality to hit only 1 boundary in a score of 44 is quite something else, right? It's a lot of restraint. My view on this is, batsmen of the quality of Virat Kohli, if they're hitting only 1 boundary, there's a problem, right? Tendulkar might make 44, but Tendulkar will hit 5 boundaries, 6 boundaries, and then he might get out trying to play a shot, but he can't not dominate the bowling. If he's feeling himself, he has to dominate the bowling. Kohli could not dominate the bowling at all, right? All right, so he plays his percentage cricket, but to me, it's a bad sign. To me, it's a bad sign when a batsman of that quality isn't doing it, and primarily, it's a bad sign because I think there's something much worse happening with Virat Kohli. People keep talking about that cover drive. His 1 boundary was a cover drive, and everybody wanted to wax eloquent about it. But the cover drive has totally gone out of his arsenal nowadays. He's very, very scared of playing it because that corridor has become a big problem for him. And he's not wrong in the analysis of the first day to say, if the rain had stayed away a little bit that day, or the bad light hadn't come that day, we would have got more overs to bat in those conditions. After being set, we would have made more runs and been in a better position. But that's the luck of the draw. 144 for 3, 146 for 3 was an excellent performance today.
Yeah.
Excellent. And New Zealand knew they'd messed up, knew their lengths were wrong. And you saw that change immediately in the morning on day 2.
Yeah. And they didn't even need a new ball because the Duke ball swings till it's 80 overs old. So it swung.
It does, and also the outfield is lush. The ball's not traveling to the boundary all that much. So where is it going to get roughed up? There's nowhere to get roughed up at all, right?
Yeah.
That also takes reverse swing out of the equation. You've got to rely on traditional swing and seam.
Yeah.
And Jamieson obviously looked the best bowler on the first day, and he was clearly the best bowler on the second day. Clearly the best bowler of the Test match. I mean, he just gives you nothing. Gives you nothing whatsoever. And he's got Virat's number. Virat just can't handle. He couldn't handle him in the ODIs in New Zealand, not in the Test matches, and he couldn't handle him.
No, I'll tell you this though. Just imagine, just one 30-second side, and we'll go back to this. Imagine a rest of the world bowling attack with Jamieson, Pat Cummins, and either Rabada or Notgay at 3 bowlers, and Ashwin being the lone spinner. They will be impossible to hit anywhere.
They give you no length.
I mean, because all of them bowl with it. Even Ashwin bowls with an economy of 2 or 3. They just don't give you boundary balls. It's just unbelievable.
But I also think there's a lot of bad batting going on. So as we
go through this analysis,
Pujara has a problem in England. He's always had a poor record in England. He can't handle swing as well as the others do. Rahane has made runs on occasion in England. But here's the killer statistic. when this test match began, the current Indian batsman with the highest average on English soil playing against England or playing on English soil was Kohli with 36. Right? At the end of their careers, Dravid and Tendulkar, after Tendulkar had a bad series in the last series, supposedly bad series, but even in that bad series, he crossed that 36 comfortably.
Yeah.
He ended with 54. Dravid was closer to 60.
Yeah.
Right? You need that kind of runs. You need that level of runs. And you are not going to get those kinds of runs.
Let me tell you this.
Kohli is 36 after a phenomenal 2018.
You
can imagine the scale of disaster that's 2014.
It was unbelievable.
First, second, there's that old 2014 technical problem is visible again. And it's visible in all formats. There have been no centuries since 2019.
Yeah.
And I know there's been COVID in between, but there have been enough games as well.
And there have been one-days. One-dayers with the Kohli.
Where he used to make hundreds of fun, he's getting out the same way in ODIs also.
Yeah.
Exactly the same way in ODIs.
Against England in the home series or before, like the 2019 one-dayers or something, there was no reason for Kohli not to score big.
So let me give you an example of that weakness and how well bowlers can exploit it. Even at his peak, right? 2017, 15, 16, 17 is Kohli's peak. And in 17, the Champions Trophy final, if you remember, he got out 2 consecutive balls to Mohammad Amir.
Yes.
Right? What were those deliveries? Everybody was thinking about the one that is going to swing in and hit you on the pads. And Amir got him twice in gully. Right? It's the away cutter, which is uncomfortable about that corridor, but his hands go hard and he can't control the shot. And he got him replica twice in the gully.
That's why he got out in the 2011 semi-final also, when Wahab Riaz got him out in gully, and then of course he had that crushing Yuvraj Singh Yorker when he got Yuvraj out.
So that weakness with Kohli, I'm going to develop this point about Kohli's batting, right? And to me, that is why 44 comes with only one boundary, because he's just not comfortable playing that shot as freely as he used to.
Yeah,
hark back to his best ODI innings, even his best Test innings. He absolutely clobbers them outside off stump. He loves that cover drive. He stomps on it.
Yeah.
He loves it on the up. He loves it when it's pitched full. I mean, that's his shot. That's his bread and butter shot. But it's a weakness today, and it's a weakness, more importantly, in his own mind, starting to get to that point. Anyway, so this is where we are on day 1. We ended well. Day 2 beginning. That cover drive weakness is back. He's now prodding at a few outside off, and eventually that 1-2 sucker punch. Jamieson knows he's going to get him either on the outside edge or the inside edge, and he beats the inside edge and gets him LBW. It was a plumb LBW very early in the day, and that coming so early in the day created problems. Created big problems, because now you're down to in very cloudy conditions. Out comes Rishabh. And Pant is an excellent batsman for a lot of conditions. This is not a set of conditions.
Yeah.
And it was improved. And the problem with guys like, I look at Sehwag, and I treat Sehwag as the most peculiar, sui generis, standalone cricketer I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Only Virendra Sehwag can play like Virendra Sehwag. Nobody else can play like Virendra Sehwag.
Agreed.
Only he, in my view, gets that out, which is to say, I'm just going to hit everything. Yeah. Only Sehwag gets that. Rishabh Pant does not have Sehwag's hitting ability. He does not get that leeway in mind.
Hand-eye coordination. I think to hit out swing bowling in England, the hand-eye, because if we remember Sehwag in 2002 in Lords or in Trent Bridge, he was in ballistic mode, and India actually did not look like losing in 2002 or 2007 in England. They just didn't look like they'd lose the series.
Aadit, it's not so much, it's a hand-eye coordination, absolutely right, but it's Sehwag's setup.
Yeah.
Was he's so leg stump, and I'm going to come on this leg stump point as well. He's so leg stump that what constitutes a corridor ball, which is say the 4th stump or the 5th stump ball, is actually a cut shot for it.
Yes.
Of that space, right? Whereas our man Rishabh is much more on the stumps, so he doesn't have that kind of space, and his stroke making is much more muscular, much more leg side driven. Right? His cover driving, his straight driving is much lesser than Sehwag. Bowlers in England want to bowl on off, and Sehwag's like, I want to hit you through point all day.
Because
So
there is a
they're
difference.
going on their strength and they're also going into Sehwag's strength.
Pant is a T20 batsman trying to replicate that in Test. Sehwag actually developed a habit of playing like T20 in the Test match, using the Test match bowling lineup. Right?
Sehwag was an awful T20 player. He had a terrible T20 record.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was like, how much more aggressive can my mind get? I don't know how to play this format because
Yeah.
I'm
He's a very lazy fielder. So T20 is all about saving and runner. Like T20 is all about running fast.
I'm just talking about as a batsman is hitting. What new idea is Virendra Sehwag supposed to bring to batting?
Actually,
That he doesn't do in a test.
even Shahid Afridi, for that matter, given how explosive he can be, his T20 record is very mediocre.
Yeah, that's a gully cricketer who was glorified based on whatever marketing thing was behind.
Boom, boom, but we'll get back to that.
Didn't deserve to be anywhere near the international. He's a better bowler than he was ever a batsman. Very good white ball bowler.
But one thing comparison.
What I'm driving at is you have Kohli has a problem playing the cover, right? Pujara has a problem with the in-cutting delivery because his bat comes like this. It comes sort of is his last minute flourish from second slip or so and trying to straighten. It doesn't actually. Rahane is not making runs for you regularly. And here's a common theme I'll show to you. In my opinion, from what I've been watching, and this happened from the South Africa series of 2017, that 1 year that we played away cricket, all of these guys have started to take a middle off guard.
Yeah.
And they're all landing up on off stump. And for that reason, they're playing too many balls, firstly. Secondly, they're not leaving the bowlers can be closer in line. They just don't have the freedom to be able to play the cover drive because the ball that they want to hit isn't coming to them.
Correct.
Dravid and Tendulkar, as a contrast, used to play more a leg middle guard. So the in-cutter was actually played with a straight bat. If you're on an off middle guard, this in-cutter is played with often, though you try to go with the straight bat, often it will end up being with a closed bat face. You're going ahead of your pad and you're closing the bat face. That's very dangerous. Right? So this is a part of where I think this technically has gone wrong. They're all moving towards off. And I don't know why, and I don't know where the runs for that come from. I don't understand the basis of it. It's not a great idea in my view. Anyway, this was day 2. Tough conditions. Played badly. Tail just did nothing. The last 3 wickets went for nothing.
Yeah.
But having said that, in my view, 217 was a fighting total. It was a good total, good enough total. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if we bowled well from 217. We could have come out with a lead.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have actually surprised me all that much. 20-30 run lead could have been managed.
And had that 7th wicket partnership not happened, 6th or 7th, New Zealand, I forget which, where Jameson eked out a few runs and stuff.
I'll tell you the thing that happened on that day, which was really the massivest session of the test match happened on that day.
Yeah.
No other session in this test saw more than 65 runs being scored.
Yeah.
That second session on that day, on New Zealand's second day of batting, that is. Right? So this first day 2, New Zealand end effectively at what? 100 for 2?
100 for 2.
Yeah, around 100 for 2.
100 for 1, 100 for 2, something like that.
Yeah, start the next morning. Oh yeah, so I want to come to this. Now they start the next morning, and I thought next morning for the first hour and 10 minutes it was bad cricket all around. I don't think we bowled particularly well. They were very tough conditions. There were pure rain all over the place, cloud all over the place. We did not in that first half create what felt like a real chance.
Yeah.
Right? Not really beating the bat all that much, not making them play all that much. But to their discredit, they didn't play any shots. They could have actually had more scoring opportunities at that time because we were a bit short of length. And I'll tell you something about the captaincy that bothers me. You're bowling a bit short, right? And so you're forced to keep a point. Right? But what do you want to do in those conditions in England? You want to leave point open. And in fact, you don't even want a regular cover. You want an extra cover. So you leave this big gap open on the square and pitch the damn ball up. And you don't even need a ton of movement. The edge will come. Right? If the batsman tries a square drive, the edge will come. And both Williamson and Ross Taylor love the square drive.
Yeah. Especially Ross Taylor. Like Williamson.
For me, this is a captaincy disaster. You have to take point away, and that immediately signals to your bowler, buddy, you're on your own as far as point is concerned. If you want to pitch short, you're going to keep going for 4. So please pitch it up. But
actually, that's what happened in the second innings when Bumrah drew Ross Taylor's edge. Of course, Pujara dropped the catch, but that's exactly what happened. He was trying to square drive it, And
So what am I getting at? What am I getting at? You, with your bad field placement, incentivized a bit of the bad bowling. At some point, as a captain, you have to start taking. You can't just say my bowlers bowled badly. Yeah, your bowlers have started badly. You have to now take charge of them. You have to turn to them and tell them, look, I'm taking away your point, so you're going to have to pitch up. And I don't care if you get hit for 2-3 boundaries. I don't care. Get hit for 5 boundaries. I don't care. You're going to get me these 2 wickets, and once you get me these 2 wickets, I'm back in the test match.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But instead, an hour and 10 minutes pass and nothing happens. And then eventually, when they do get a wicket, do you remember how it happened?
Yeah, the Taylor wicket, right?
Yeah. So first, Shami was the first bowler to actually pitch up, and the effect was telling.
But Shami didn't get a ball till like 7-8 overs or something.
There you go. Maybe 10 overs. 10 overs. Shami pitched up. When he pitched up the ball, he bowled some. Well, you know those kind of deliveries that you only get in England, which you look at and go like, my God, that can't be rebowled, and it can certainly never be played. Even though it didn't get a wicket.
What James Anderson does for breakfast every day.
Yeah. So he pitched up, and then he pitched a little, but not enough, not frequently enough. Although he was better than the others, it was still not enough pitching up. You know how we got that wicket? With a lofty cover.
Yeah. I was about to say, it was he did not bother to keep the ball down, and Shubman Gill had that good catch, and it was a phenomenal catch actually that got us the wicket.
Well, I mean, it was a good catch. I wouldn't say phenomenal. It's a full-length dive. Nowadays standard.
No. The reason I'm saying that is because it could have been like, it's not the ideal place where you want the wicket.
I get that. But my point is this: this is an hour and 25 minutes into a day on which there's cloud cover. You haven't induced an edge.
Yeah.
Not one edge.
That
says a lot about your captaincy.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you get Henry Nicholls, and that's your first edge.
Yep.
That comes from Ishant. But Ishant bowling to the left-hander, I expect the edge. This is what he thrives on. Right? And then Shami bowls that absolutely unplayable peach to BJ Botley. That ball is not even good length, it's full length.
Yeah.
So if you haven't still learnt your lessons, you've got a problem. And I'll tell you why they didn't learn their lessons. Now you come to the next session. And that next session is where this test match was lost more than even what we did. Just observe what happens here. No other session in that entire test match produces more than 60-65 runs. That session produced 106 runs for New Zealand.
Correct.
Right? And so they went from where I was thinking at the end of the first session, we're going to take a lead here.
Yeah, when Watling was dismissed 135 for 5, I thought that New Zealand's a lot by like 190. Yeah, and we'll get a 30-run lead, and then at the end of the day, we'll be like,
15 run ki bhi lead aise test matches. 15 runs lead is effective in these kind of test matches.
And that was the difference, because if you see, India was 40-50 runs short in the end of it.
That's what I'm getting at, right? So those runs exactly are what go from being 40-50 behind or 30 behind to being 30 ahead. And that's a really telling difference. 32, it's not a bad lead, right? Yeah. But whatever 32 was, now the sun is out. And it's been out for most of the day. And you come out to bat with the sun out. And I mean, you know, Rohit Sharma looks like he's in command till he's not in command.
Yeah.
Shubman Gill, I am going to give another 10 test matches to Shubman Gill because it's apparent the guy has it all. He has everything in his batting. He'll come good eventually. I have no fears as to that. Right? But he's got to start producing now. He's got to start producing some runs of this England series. Otherwise,
we don't want another Wasim Jafar.
Or another KL Rahul. Who looks like
but because he reminds me of Wasim Jafar, because Wasim Jafar had so much promise. Man, whenever he was batting, you were like, "Bas tu khelta hai for 6 hours." And
Jafar is extremely elegant, but I wouldn't rate Jafar there, because Jafar, throughout his test career, first phase and then second phase, he used to have plenty of innings where he's caught on the walk. It was just a little too slow.
Someone here is getting out the same winner.
Rahul can come and slaughter like Dale Steyn for 5 sixes in an over if he wants. KL Rahul had crazy levels of talent, but just no application. And I'm starting to fear that's the one fear with Shubman Gill. Yeah. Though in my opinion, Shubman Gill is India's next great batsman. I don't see anyone else around the corner, and I hope I'm proved right, because we really need some depth now. Anyway, so that dismissal of Rohit's just I was filthy with that dismissal.
It
You
was
cannot be shouldering arms to that length.
it was reminded me of that stupid hook shot he played at the Gabba, or not at the Gabba. It was at the Gabba, right? Like he was 52 and last 2-3 overs to go, and he's like, "Let me hook him for another 6." And I'm like, oh.
Was that Gabba? I think it was Sydney.
It was Sydney. But it was a dumb. That's what it reminded me of. It was as dumb decision.
And I'll tell you why it's even worse is because in those conditions, suddenly the ball isn't moving as much.
Oh.
Right? So the propensity to not want to play a shot doesn't exist. You can play a lot of balls on your back now. The deviation isn't as much. Right? There is, when you play in swinging conditions, and the greatest example of this used to be Tendulkar and Dravid. They used to do this a lot. I'm going to say something very oxymoronic, but there is such a thing as being beaten while being in total control. Right? You play the straight line and you have no problems about the outswinger beating you.
Yeah.
Because you're not playing the outswinger.
Yeah.
Right? So if it's swinging too much, no worries. This is exactly what I intend to do. But I have the physical discipline that my bat is always in the straight line of the ball. Right? So if you play with that discipline when the ball is moving lesser, you're going to actually play a lot off the bat. But he got totally done by Saudi. He was confused about what that ball is going to do. You may be confused, but at least you get your bat down. Shouldering arms made no sense, and plumb LBW gone. Then Kohli and Pujara come. They sort of start off. Not much to say about the end of that day, but then comes the final day, and the party starts again in the morning. And they first 4 overs, they looked like they had some intent behind them.
Yeah.
They weren't hitting boundaries, but they wanted to score. They wanted to move forward. And it made tactical sense because you ended the day 30 odd ahead. And we all sort of had this figure of 180 to 200 to get safe.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know how, jingoistic Twitter might have thought differently, or jingoistic fans might have thought differently. I saw 0% chances of an Indian win.
Yeah.
There was no chance.
The only chance was if we were somehow all out with a 200 lead with 50 overs to go and the ball was turning square.
Yeah, but that would need some kind of miracle innings by
That's
someone.
what I'm saying. So that is what I'm saying.
A bowling lineup that doesn't show weaknesses.
And it would need Trent Bolt to scuff up the pitch with his footmarks and Ashwin and Jadeja to exploit it.
Yeah, it was madness to expect more, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. So they start off, and then something happened. And I'm going to come back to that off stump thing again. Jamieson now gets his line and length sorted.
Yeah.
And what did he do to Kohli? Kohli, before he got out, he plays outside off to just exactly what I thought in his mind he's doing is that being beaten while being in control thing. Right? No problems with that, except he's playing for an in cutter on the 5th stump. You have no business playing for an in cutter on the 5th stump.
That's true.
And being beaten by the straight delivery.
Yeah.
Eventually, what does that translate to? The away going delivery, your hands reach for it. And if you look at that delivery in isolation, he stayed so far wide outside off, you even wonder if this is an elite batsman. But it's been done by what was happening prior, because he kept bringing the ball in, and this guy gets so far outside off that his head goes beyond the line of the in cutter, and his hand is coming across. So the bat face is closing on the ball. He has a problem with that one dismissal. I felt he had a problem even knowing where his off stump was.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge problem for your best batsman to have. I mean, listen, Tendulkar, Dravid have had bad times, bad series, but they always knew their off stump. They may be playing up your bad shots, maybe making mental errors, but not having a problem with where their off stump is. He's got a real problem, I think, right now with where his off stump is.
And I bring everyone to the patch between 2001 and 2008, right? Because that's where Indian batting lineup was at its finest, those 7 years, right? We found everything.
I thought it was 2011.
Maybe 2011, but I don't. We had those 2 bad series in England and Australia, and by 2011, Tendulkar and Dravid had.
No, up to the 11 World Cup. At the 2011 World Cup, Indian cricket fell off a precipice. It just fell.
Till this jersey rule, till 2011 World Cup. So okay, those 10 years, you did not win series in Australia. You only won one in England, but the most important, you did not lose. Like we did not lose a series in England after 1996 till 2011. Both 2002 we drew 1-1, 2007 we won 1-0. And Michael, if you ask Michael Waugh in 2007, we probably could have won 2-1 or 2-0. Like had gone in our
fact that I again, it's something I'm speaking of memory. You can check up on this. But that peak Australian team, right, had a losing record to India. If you include home and away tests.
Absolutely, it does, because
losing record to India. Now they won a series at home. I don't dispute that for a moment. But overall, they had a losing record to India.
No, I can count it right now. 98 we won 2-1. 1999 we lost 3-0. But 2001 you won 2-1 again. 2003 you drew 2-1-1. 2004 is when you lose 2-1. But then after that, all the home series
you win.
You win. And you win 3-0, 4-0, 2-0. And so you only lost that one.
That team was capable of coming out with a winning record against the elite Australian team.
Yeah.
Right. So whenever I'm told Team India, greatest ever team that we've ever had, I mean, highest resources, I agree on the bowling side, but just stop kidding yourselves, right?
Exactly.
So for me, the big takeaway from this test match is what I want to watch, how Kohli handles the swing in England now, because that second innings dismissal to me created doubts about that off-stump problem.
Yeah. But can you a little bit about Pujara, and then we'll end.
Team. With Pujara, I just don't think he plays swing bowling well.
No, that is true, but his whole percentage. See, the thing with Pujara, what has become is that he pretty much, like, wherever, even when he can push the ball, he blocks, right? Like in Australia. So I don't know in India, like during the Australia series, if you guys were watching the Indian broadcast or the Australian broadcast, sadly what's happened is Indian broadcasting has become very jingoistic when it comes to pure analysis of the Kohli team, right? Australian broadcast is, so basically what the Australians were saying, and Australian commentators are reasonably jingoistic also, but you had Isha Goa and all of them giving very good analysis on this. That Pujara, when he can actually push, and Mark Waugh actually was saying that he can push the ball around for ones and twos, right? That whole amazing innings at Gabba when he was 9 of 100 balls. Mark Waugh's simple point was, why can't he be 20 of 100? He can actually push the ball for 1 or 2. He's like, I don't mind him playing 80 dot balls, but the straight where he can actually, but it seems like he's gone into such a blocking mindset that boss, and he's not a goddamn night watchman.
And it's killing momentum. It's killing momentum for the Indians.
He can actually hit the ball. Like, so when Gill got going, Pujara was actually smashing the ball for, he, like, even in England, he was zero of like 35 balls or something, and then he hit 2 boundaries in 2 balls. And I'm like, boss,
it's a consistent problem. I'm totally on board with you. His backlift and bat swing is really bad for swing bowling. It's an arc. It's an arc.
Yeah.
So it comes from third slip, and it comes third and even beyond fourth slip, and then tries to straighten up. It's very hard.
And honestly, that is why I was hoping that, because Dhoni picked him for Chennai CSK IPL, I hope he plays 3-4 IPL games in Dubai or something. Abhi jo IPL shuru ho raha hai, कि थोड़ा उसका backswing improve ho, because there he's forced to use a heavier thing. But because in England, if you cannot score, if you cannot even get 2 or 3 or single, Anderson is going to get you out. Anderson or Broad, because
if you're standing there for 6 balls, he's going to figure you out.
Yeah. And that man is even more consistent than Pat Cummins. He can literally, he's like that Iqbal guy. You can put a coin on a wicket and Anderson is going to pitch the damn ball on that coin 12 times out of 4.
Problems in their team, England, right? They've also got problems in their team. But this is a real issue. Pujara, Kohli, Rahane is the heart of your middle order, and they're not producing runs. And Rahane, that dismissal is such a rubbish dismissal down the leg side. But what did he do with that?
No, the first innings was even worse, where he just played that half pull shot to Neil Wagner. What was that?
I put out a tweet at that time saying, I think I have exploded with frustration.
Yeah.
He first played a pull shot, got lucky because it bounced in front of the square leg. Yeah. And immediately the next ball, you played the same shot.
The only thing dumber than that was Ashwin taking on the pull shot with 4 fieldsmen in catching position. 4 in the second innings. I mean, they had a forward short leg, they had a square leg, they had a deep square leg, they had a fine leg, and Ashwin is like, let me place it in the middle and run one single. I'm like, what are you talking about?
So this is what I wanted to come to, because now you brought up Ashwin. Ashwin has had just there is some problem with the thinking in this test match for this team, because right, so you lose Pujara, you lose Rahane, now you're basically down to Jadeja and Pant batting. I don't know why Jadeja goes ahead of Ashwin. I would always put Ashwin ahead of Jadeja. I know Jadeja's test match average recently is 56, but Jadeja has not been playing away tests. I would still put Ashwin up there, right? And ask him to play a slower game, block and accumulate. That test match that we saved in Sydney would set up the Gabba. Ashwin played a complete blocking innings, right?
Yeah.
He withstood bouncers. He blocked everything that came his way. He was in very different conditions, I don't doubt it. But it reflected a mentality. He can handle that. That kind of inning he can handle. He can absorb that pressure and he can keep blocking and keeping one end up. For whatever reason, Ashwin also came out in this innings after Jadeja got out and decided he wants to go hell for leather. And I think the thinking was they were 120 odd for 6 at that time, that they will try and quickly get 40-50 runs and that will save them. But that's not a percentage play in that situation. Right?
Yeah.
And let me tell you how bad the thinking was. I have known Pant did not counter attack in this innings, and I liked that about him. He played shots when they were needed. Pant ended with a strike rate of less than 50. That does not constitute counter attacking. 41 of 87 balls. Right? But he kept scoring. He kept scoring a little bit. This is how you play in England. It's perfectly fine. It's not a counter-attacking inning. It's not an irresponsible inning. But what happened in the beginning of that second session, Pant hits sixes, no doubt. Pant hits big booming boundaries, no doubt. But he does it from the crease.
Yeah.
He came bouncing down the track to bolt, right? And splices it in the air. And Henry Nicholls takes a catch, which I think is not getting enough love. That is a phenomenal catch. And it's more phenomenal for how easy he made it look. It was just such a precise piece of running to the ball, catching, and like stable in the hand. Brilliant catch. Now that happens first ball of the over. Ravichandran Ashwin gets out later in that over, trying to play a booming cover drive of Bolt, and gets out to a wide delivery. This is not brain fade. This is madness beyond madness. I mean, you cannot put it in words how bad this level of thinking is, right? So that's why, especially for a batsman, this is why I pointed to that earlier. Australia, like, he possesses the mental capacity to batten down the hatches, right? He can play that way, but clearly the instruction was go for it. So it's just, I don't know what it is with Shastri and Kohli. They think they can play like the all-conquering Aussies or the all-conquering West Indians, and conditions don't matter, and we can show our intent at all time. Good luck to you then.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just, I mean, that's like when Ravi Shastri was comparing Prithvi Shaw to Brian Lara or something like that. Like it reminds that. Yeah, exactly. So this brings me to an important point, right? We'll talk the last 10 minutes.
Just to end the test match, we were never in that defense of the target. We were never in defense of it in the target or on time, because again we bowled rubbish.
Yes,
absolutely. Was absolutely abject.
Yeah, he had figures of like 3 to 12-0 or something, 5 to 18-0. That means, boss, 12 balls you bowled where there was no run, and the other 3 overs you were giving 6 runs an over. I'm like, I mean, what the hell?
You didn't select swing bowlers, so the ball didn't swing for you. It swung for them, they bowled you up. So what I wanted to draw out was, for me, this kind of disaster, it's not dissimilar to how I used to analyze the World Cup also. This is in the making in your selectorial problem of the squad. Then into the team, going into the team, then on the captaincy, where you constantly keep point in squad. What the heck keeps point in those conditions? Anyway, so your bowlers keep bowling too short, and this is what you end up.
So let me ask you this then, and we'll talk about Kane Williamson the last, because I think we have to talk about the good guys the last, about that. Not that
New Zealand bowling and batting as well.
No, that's what we'll end with, but I want to ask one fundamental question. Does Virat Kohli need need to be replaced as a captain in at least one format. There was this moment, like I think there was 7 down, or we picked up the 7th or the 8th wicket, where Kohli was jumping like a little boy who had just found like patang or something, and Rohit Sharma just looks, almost with that expression, "Ye kya hai?" Rohit Sharma had that wonderful, like it was like there are two people. One is a vice captain, one is the captain, and the vice captain seems like the bigger adult in the room than the captain, because like he just like so much, he's become theatrical, and then he's almost playing for this weird image on social media, I feel like.
You are talking about this in 2021. I've been screaming since 2017.
No, I agree. Same. I've been.
I think he's a rubbish captain. And it's more than even infield performance. Like, in terms of bowling resources, no Indian captain has had these kinds of resources. No one has ever had these kinds of resources, right? In terms of managing batsmen, getting them through, making them feel secure, he has made every batsman feel insecure, barring Rahane. Even Pujara in between, he had made feel insecure.
Rahane, he had dropped Rahane also.
Yeah. So that's South Africa series. He lands up in South Africa, doesn't pick Rahane for the first test, picks Rohit, loses the test match.
Yeah.
Right? Bhuvneshwar is your best player in that test match. Second test, Bhuvneshwar is dropped.
Yeah.
He does my head in, boss. And for whom? Hardik Pandya is going to be the next bloody Kapil Dev plus Botham plus Imran Khan combined.
Yeah. And he can't bowl a ball right now.
What are you looking at? I mean, I just don't understand how he analyzes the game. You go to England, you pitched your whole 10 days. Hardik Pandya is going to bowl well. 4-0, boss. 4-0. Nowhere. I mean, you need better.
On Southampton, where the ball was turning square, you pick one spinner, and you can't chase down 200 runs.
But at Southampton, 4 years later, when it's been raining for 4 days, you pick two spinners again.
Yes.
I mean, it's bookended how stupid your captaincy is, man. That's how bookended. And that puts into perspective this whole line of, we don't look at the
we picked the squad for 2022, 2021, and 2018.
Don't look at the conditions. I mean, this is how stupid you are. Bookended, perfect.
They don't look at conditions. Kohli looks at Shastri, Shastri looks at Kohli, and they decide ki chalo hun kar lo, pick khatam.
Yeah, I've been getting trolled for about 2.5 years on Kohli. And like savage, like Kohli fans are like Salman Khan fans. Now, a thick-skinned guy like me, you don't know how much fun I am with them. I love it. I thrive on their trolling.
Yeah.
And I keep poking at it. And for all the resources he's possessed, all he's won away from home is against a weakened Australian Test match lineup.
He hasn't. In 2018. Oh, I mean, you're talking about 2018.
Yeah. There was no Warner, no Smith, and no Cameron Bancroft.
I would rate this victory higher, but that came under Rahane, not under Kohli.
Yes. Exactly. The one test match we lost came under Kohli.
Yeah. The most infamous in Indian history, 36 all out. But
right, so I have a real I can't fathom it. And 2019 World Cup, let's be clear again, right? So what happens in match 2019 World Cup, man? The word 3D cricketer, right? It did I couldn't believe I'm hearing these terms. Like he's a 3-dimensional cricketer, what the selector is saying.
Yeah.
3D cricketer kya hota hai?
And for a wicket
behind, you left Ambati Rayudu behind. What did you miss out for? A number 4.
Don't even and whenever I see MSK Prasad speaking, I always remember that ball from Brett Lee, and he's still being clueless. Today
his bat is this far away from off stump, and the bouncer and the Yorkers come and hit the base of off.
And what the great Jeffrey Boycott, and I'm repeating myself, what I said 2 podcasts ago, what Jeffrey Boycott said when Gautam Gambhir got out in England with his bat hanging out. He's like, Jeffrey Boycott's like, he's rubbish. He 4 years ago he's lost it, and looks like he still hasn't found it. MSK Prasad lost it 20 years ago. He still hasn't found it today.
Again, coming to Kohli now, for 3 years leading up to that World Cup, you invested in your idea of attacking with 2 spinners, Kuldeep and Chahal.
Yeah.
Right? You lost one match in the World Cup to England where you yourself admitted this happened because one side was short boundaries and the spinners got hit for 6s.
No, but you lost because Jadhav and Champus.
He has mismanaged KL Rahul. He has mismanaged Kuldeep Yadav. He has mismanaged a number of the young openers that were coming through at one time or the other. Yeah. This guy is riding. Look, there's got to be some kind of corporate reason why he seems to be that Indian cricket will forever be his fiefdom.
Which is why I always say this, and we'll jump to New Zealand in the closing comments in the last 5 minutes. Kohli, for anyone who says compare Kohli to Sachin, I'll slap them, because Sachin knew when to step down. When he sucked as a captain, twice he stepped down. He threatened that he was going to resign from the team if they don't drop him as a captain. And for simple reason, this is why Sachin's 2004 Sydney innings remains one of the most incredible innings he's ever played, because he cut out the cover drive, he cut out the straight drive, he cut out the entire offside, still managed to get to 200 at more than 50% of the strike rate, and
Strike rate.
Pretty much batted India to where they just couldn't lose.
Yeah.
Is that,
series.
If my bowlers can take 20 wickets, I don't understand. I'm going to take them to.
But for the usual Steve Bucknor bullshit, we had that test match one on day 5 because Steve Waugh was plumb.
He was plumb. I think Martin also or something. Martin, Ponting.
What can you do when Steve Bucknor versus India is another story?
I remember that famous Gabba where he gave out Sachin was 0 and Tony Greig was like, that is a dreadful decision. That's what he said on air. And he's like, when Bucknor raised his finger, he's like, oh no, that's a dreadful decision. And then in 2003, he said, in my mind, this should be able to be overturned. He said this. He's like, he was advocating DRS in 2003, and he's like, there is no. And Tony Greig's passion for Sachin is of course very well known. He was so mad on air. I was like, what nonsense is Bucknor doing? So Bucknor ने तो 2003 में trailer दिया था और 2008 में पूरी picture दिखा दी Sydney में. But
so on the Kohli captaincy issue, I think the only guy who can be captain in Test right now is Ashwin. If it's not Kohli, because Ashwin's the only one who comes into the team and is consistently there in and I think he'll make a terrific captain.
And I don't understand why we haven't picked a bowling captain after Kumble. After Kumble was such a phenomenal captain.
And you put in Ashwin as captain, he probably has 2 to 3 years maximum left in his career, and that should be enough time to bridge the gap for some of these younger cricketers to come through.
Which is what Kumble did. He was the bridge between the Dravid era and the Dhoni era. He was there for 2.5 years, and that was enough to mentor Dhoni into a being captain.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's exactly what he needs to do. And Rahane can be a deputy, because I think even Rahane is a good deputy leader. So
at the end of the Test series, I'm not so sure Ajinkya Rahane will be an automatic selection anymore.
I actually think Rahane probably, because Pujara and Kohli I predict to be so bad, I think Rahane might work better. I hope I'm proven wrong.
They drop each other as well if they want to get rid of Rahane.
So I hope I'm proven wrong, but I hope Kohli is really good as he was in 2018. But the way he's playing, you watch the 2018 highlights, he was incredible. But coming to the last part of the podcast, we have to talk a little bit about Kane Williamson and his brand of cricket. He was phenomenal. He played one bad shot to get out, but for the 143 balls before he got out, he was brilliant as a batsman and as a leader. The way he was marshalling his resources.
I don't use words like phenomenal and brilliant for Williamson in this context. Williamson is technically excellent.
No, but I'm not using phenomenal as a batsman. I'm using phenomenal as a leader, because he can get the.
He is 10 times the captain that you're. He's 10 times the captain that your captain is. He thinks about things much better than your captain does.
Correct.
He thinks about his batting innings better than your captain does. He missed out a lot of runs that were there for the taking, in my view. That's why I was a little critical of his batting.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely correct. This is a batsman who knows his off stump. You see Williamson leaving a ball.
Yeah.
He leaves the ball in the first third of the ball's flight. He's so clear about what it's about.
Yeah.
So clear. Right? Doesn't get beaten outside off all that much.
Yeah.
And here's the killer with him. One of Williamson's go-to shots, his run-making shots, is that dab to third man. That late cut and dab to third man. He completely took it out of the game. And he was able to play simpler shots forward front of the wicket. Right?
And I may be slaughtered for saying that, but he's the true inheritor of the legacy of Rahul Dravid. Not just in the way he plays, but in the way he conducts himself on the field and the way he leads his team.
Yeah, no, I understand the comparisons to that. Williamson, look, is my favorite batsman from this generation.
No. I'm not talking about batting. I'm talking about a leader. A leader.
No, in every sense, I understand. I mean, I'm loath to make comparisons, but I understand the parallel is a very good parallel.
Yeah.
Williamson and Dravid is a very good parallel. Personality-wise, they fit. Batting style-wise, they fit. Importance to the team-wise, they fit. They fit.
And there are a few good men of cricket.
Yeah. I just think that Williamson's an even better captain than Dravid ever was.
Huh.
He built a very good team and he's built a strong team. But New Zealand got absolutely tonked by Australia in Australia just before we had gone there. So I don't know about this World Test Championship format. May need a lot of rethinking. And I'm with Kohli on this that if you're going to do this away neutral venue series, there has to be 3 Test matches at least. I accept that. But all of that is nice to say. But the truth is, you knew what these circumstances are, you knew what these conditions are, and you played them badly.
Exactly. Sorry.
Devon Conway looks like the real deal. Looks like a very good batsman. Conway looks like a very, very good batsman. They are also going to have a problem because Taylor will be gone in a couple of months, in a year maximum. I think Ross Taylor will be, and they need to fill that hole in the middle order. Yeah. But that bowling lineup, man, they keep producing a Henry. It was who bowled Matt Henry bowled in the Test match against England and was fantastic, and he wasn't scheduled for this match.
So as was Ajaz Patel, and so New Zealand has 2 good spinners and Ajaz Patel and Mitch Santner as well. So they have a squad that can actually take on in the subcontinent wickets as well. At least give people a good fight.
So the way it sort of played out, some things are very odd about this Test Championship. England played 21 matches, we played 17 matches, Australia played 19 matches, New Zealand played only 11 matches.
Yeah.
So it didn't there's an unfairness element to that.
Yeah.
But then it is what it is. And I think New Zealand eventually comes out as the Test champion amongst a generation of fairly, I would say, across the board mediocre teams with just too many weaknesses across the board.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, but in conclusion, this is a phenomenal discussion, Nikhil, on this. I think maybe we'll do a follow-up one after India's England tour is over. Maybe a congratulations or a commiserations. But closing thoughts. What about the England tour and what do you see for the way forward for Indian cricket?
Well, first you need to change your selection. You need to 1 or 2 swing bowlers need to be added to this squad.
Does Jaddu need to go from being a permanent fixture in this 11 to only be when we are playing in India or when there is some sort of assistance on the wicket?
That will depend. That does see again. I would like to convey this to the Indian management. That depends on the conditions. All right. You might land up. I don't know. You land up in London to play a Test match at the Oval or at Lord's in July sometime, and it's 5 days of sun. Jaddu might be useful for you on day 4 and day 5, right? But England, you still need, to get to day 4 or day 5 in a condition, in a position in a Test match where you can affect the Test match. I think you need swing bowlers early on.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that this batting lineup is good enough to have only 5 batsmen either. So you're going to have to make do with 4 bowlers. The problem is, unlike in the past, none of those batsmen bowl.
Yeah.
None of them bowl.
None of them. You have to almost get that is why Sachin and Ganguly's 10 overs that we got in a Test match were so critical. In England, Saurav Ganguly was, I remember in 2007, our bowlers couldn't pick up a wicket. Ganguly comes and traps Cook in front. First Test match in Lords.
Yes. I think nothing else. They are relief overs. Yeah, they're useful overs.
Yeah, no, and let's not forget, Zaheer Khan was swinging it 3 ways in 2007, off and bloody reverse swing.
He was phenomenal. He was
phenomenal. So if you don't have a single swing bowler, that's why I think Shardul Thakur almost becomes an automatic selection in the first or second Test match, especially when you're playing Lords with the scope.
Is he in the squad?
He is. He was in the squad of 30. That's what I thought. At least he was as a backup.
I don't think he was in the 21 members. That's why I'm saying I don't.
God,
we have a scale of problem we're dealing with here. You know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say is you have to get both Bhuvi and Shardul and put them in the squad.
They should actually ship Bhuvi after 2 or 3 one-dayers to England, get him quarantined for 2 weeks, ready for the first Test match.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I think Bumrah has to be dropped in favor of Bhuvi.
No, I wouldn't drop Bumrah quite yet. I wouldn't drop it. But if you can't have all 3 bowling very similarly.
Yeah.
Right? So you
Shami plays the whole series.
Absolutely. He's your best bowler in these circumstances.
Yeah.
You have to. Siraj is already there. Siraj will be a good addition. You'll have to choose. Maybe today you're right. Maybe on the performance of this Test match, it's Bumrah that gets dropped and Siraj comes in for Bumrah.
Because I'm also thinking Bumrah needs to bowl a lot in county cricket and stuff. That man has been bowling way too much in white ball cricket, and he has not been because he has the same problem that Ashwin did, na? That Ashwin had forgotten how to bowl consistently on the off stump when he was like trying this carom ball and this weird leg spin
No,
delivery.
no, no. I think something more heinous has happened here. When he bowled in the West Indies 2 years ago, he was unplayable. He was swinging the ball really late, both ways. Then he had the stress fractures on his back.
Correct.
He bowled that unplayable delivery even in Australia in the 2018 tour, which we won. He bowled some unplayable full-length swinging deliveries at that time. He's come back from the stress fractures in the back, and the swing has been gone for a while now. So he's got to rediscover something. Either they decide, okay, one way or another, we're just going to keep playing Bumrah and he'll rediscover himself, or they may drop him and put Siraj in, because I don't think they can go in with more than 4 bowlers, given the problem in the batting lineup.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's what we'll see. But with Pujara, Kohli, and Rahane, it seems like they're all on borrowed time right now. Kohli as a captain, not as a player.
Yeah, Sharma to that list. I don't know what Rohit Sharma does away to us that he shouldn't be in that list.
Rohit.
All at home.
Yeah, exactly. This is the last chance. This is his first and last chance. I mean, last chance in away tours. If he ends up with an average of 28 again in away tour, because that seems to be his thing. He gets out between 20 and 30 with a weird consistent basis.
Yeah. So me, the main thing is that they have to get swing bowlers into the squad. Then they have to find a way to select these swing bowlers. And I don't think they can be confident enough going into test matches against England with just 5 batsmen when these batsmen aren't playing well enough. England have recently lost series and test matches in India and elsewhere because of this bubble requirement. They were not picking their best 11. But now they're at home, and I think they'll consistently pick their best 11, and they have enough bowling depth as well to keep it rotational on the bowling side.
Exactly.
I think they'll be a tougher team than we've seen in the past, although nonetheless they have problems because there are a lot of batsmen who are bedding into international cricket right now.
Exactly.
They can be got at, but we've got to pick our best 11 first.
Absolutely. And that is the thing. We can't give any recommendations to end the podcast because watch the damn cricket and series, but write to us, guys, on what you think about this and maybe the kind of questions we want to cover in a follow-up podcast. But thank you, Nikhil. You've been very generous with your time. But this was a lot of fun discussing.
Hey, talking about cricket, I always enjoy it.
No, and when I messaged Nikhil, I'll reveal this. मैंने वही लिखा था दोनों भड़ास साथ में निकालेंगे podcast में because WTC में इतनी भड़ास भरी हुई थी. So we do this and before Kushal beats me up because initially he said कि हम तीनों साथ में भड़ास निकालेंगे उसके podcast पे. So that might be also coming, but yeah, very soon after the England tour. But thank you so much for joining, guys. Please like us on Facebook, subscribe, follow us on our Twitter accounts. We'll be back next week with more. Thank you so much for joining, Nikhil. This was fantastic.
Take care.